call to order for the November 8th meeting of the Beach Mountain Council.
So move.
Second?
Okay, we need to adopt the agenda.
Adopt.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Cyclone?
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Our scripture for today is from the book of Isaiah. But those that hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings of eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Day after tomorrow is Veterans Day, 11 November. Just to honor all the veterans that have ever served. Many people have a hard time remembering the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. Memorial Day is where we honor all those that made the supreme sacrifice. Veterans Day is where you honor anybody that ever served. We were Armistice Day, but President Eisenhower in his term changed it to Veterans Day to honor everyone. It's called Armistice Day. Most of you are familiar with this, some of you older people especially. I don't believe it's seen in here. But Armistice Day was set aside at the end of World War I to honor the ones that were served in World War I. Germany, Britain, France, and us all signed the armistice. And it was to come to ceasefire, the 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month. Some poor British soldiers got to be the unluckiest guy in the world. He was killed by an artillery shell 5 minutes before the ceasefire stopped. I've always wondered, why when you get a ceasefire, why don't you just do it immediately? If you can tell them to stop, well, let them stop. Of course, I wasn't in charge, as you probably know. But this was called the War to End All Wars. And we know how that worked out. Since then, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. The Vietnam soldiers the way they were treated was just despicable, horrible, disgrace for the whole nation. Because these were 18, 19, 20-year-old guys that went over, they didn't want to go, most of them. And then when they came back, they were called baby killers and spat upon and all that. But Congress, a few years later, decided to put up a memorial for the Vietnam soldiers. And some of you probably have been there, the Vietnam Wall in Washington. If you haven't, get an opportunity, I urge you to go. It's very, very emotional to see it. And on this wall is the name of all the soldiers that were killed in Vietnam. 58,267 of them in this period. They are listed on the wall by the date of their death in an alphabetical order. The first soldier, known casualty in Vietnam, was a soldier named Richard Fitzgibbons. He was killed on the 8th of June, 1956. His son, Marine Lance Corporal Richard Fitzgibbons III, was killed on the 7th of September, 1965. First father-son to be killed. There are three other sets of fathers and sons that were killed in Vietnam. 39,996 of the names on the wall were 22 years old or under. 8,285 were 19 years old. The largest age group, 33,103, were 18 years old. 12 of the names on the wall were 17 years old. 5 of the names were 16 years old. There's one name on the wall, PFC Dan Bullock, was 15 years old. Of course, these 15, 16, 17 would have had lied about the age and false identity to go. 997 of the names on the wall were killed on their very first day in Vietnam. Even sadder, 1,448 of them were killed on their last scheduled day. They were supposed to go home the next day. And of course they went home, but that's not the way that they wanted it. 31 sets of brothers on the wall, which means some families lost 2 sons. 54 of the names on the wall were from the same high school, Thomas Edison High School in Philadelphia. No one knows why this coincidence happened, but that many of them. 8 names on the wall were women, the nurses were killed. There were 244 Medal of Honors awarded in Vietnam. 153 of them names on the wall. So you see, most of them are posthumously there. Belleville, Ohio, with a population of 475, lost 6 of her sons. West Virginia is the state with the highest casualty rate per capita of any of them. There were 9 graduates of a little high school in Arizona, Morenci, and it was these guys all, the day after graduation, all 9 of them, I think you only had about 15 in the class, counting girls. They marched down and joined the Marine Corps the very next day. One of them came home. 8 of them were killed. There were 3 friends from a little town in Utah that lived on 6th, 7th, and 8th Streets and grew up together, joined the Corps together, and they were killed on consecutive special days. One of them, the boy that was killed on 6th Street, was killed on the day that anniversary of Kennedy's assassination. The boy that lived on 7th Street was killed on Thanksgiving, and the boy that lived on 8th Street was killed on December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. Some other coincidence there. The things that they leave now, so many people come to visit the wall, and the name on the wall has special meaning to them. It's a loved one, a friend, somebody served with them. And they leave special things, objects laying around in front of them where the name is that had meaning to the person that left them and the person's name on the wall. The things such as maybe a love letter, poem, records, toys, maybe even a high school letter or something like that. They gather them up at the end of the day, and they have a big storage area where they keep them. One of the things I think that was left probably sums up how most of the soldiers felt. It was a poem that they found by one of the names that someone had left. He said, "I was prepared to serve. I was prepared to be wounded. I was prepared to be killed. However, when I came home, I was not prepared to be forgotten." Most folks look at this as just numbers, but the people that come and have loved ones' names on the wall, it's the name and they want them to be honored. It's an old country song, probably some of you have heard. The Statler Brothers had, it's called "The Wall," I believe. And one of the lines went, "My boy is more than a name on the wall." And one thing I think we need to remember Veterans Day and every day as we go forward is there are no noble wars, just noble warriors. Would you bow your heads, please? Lord, we thank you so much for this day. We pray that you be with Joe, our president, and Roy, our governor, Barry, our mayor, Bob, our town manager, and all our town council. We pray that you be with our military, our firefighters, EMT, and law enforcement. And we ask, Lord, you continue to be with the United States of America and Beech Mountain. Amen.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mountain.
Mayor and council, our featured local business tonight is the Atlantic Ale House across the street, and Jacob is here tonight. Finally.
Finally, yeah, we've had some
It's been hard getting him here, but finally you're here and you're open, and tell us a little bit about the business.
So I want to thank the mayor and council members for having us here and kind of explain to you what we are and how we do things. So my name is Jacob Green. I'm the owner of the Atlantic Ale House at Beach Mountain. My wife and I are the owner operators of that. This is our second location, with our first location being in Johnson City, Tennessee. We've had that one open for 8 years, and we had an opportunity to meet Jimmy this past summer, and great opportunity to come up here and open our establishment and provide our love of craft beer to the community up here. We are excited to be up here, and we do love this community a lot, specifically in the winter as well as the summer. But what we are is we are a local and regional craft beer bar. We have 16 taps. Specializing in, like I said, local and craft beer. We have everything from nitro beer, dark beers, porters, stouts, sours, IPAs, pale ales, pilsners, kolsches, and we always got a gluten-free cider or a ginger beer on tap as well. So that is what we do. We enjoy craft beer. We also do have a selection of canned wine. No food, but go to Brick Oven, get one of the fabulous pies, bring it over, and indulge in a couple of adult beverages is more than welcome. Kids are there. You're more likely to see our two little ones running around causing havoc. So, but that's what we are, and we're glad to be here. Appreciate you all coming.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Okay, public comments. I have Nick Wilson.
Good afternoon. My mother and father taught me a lesson was always be respectful to my elders. Today,
Don't even look at me. No.
we trust that in your wisdom that you will review the millage rate. I've got 4 items I'm going to speak on. The first is the millage rate on the taxes, to review those and involve the community while you do that. Number 2 is a minor item, but behind you is a flag of Beach Mountain. It's blue, but the one that flies out front is white. The one that is on the wall up in the mayor's office is a white one. Can you please make up your mind which one it is, blue or white, and then make all the flags the same color? I want you to review again the policy on picking up limbs and bags of leaves. I patrol my neighborhood of about 5 streets over there by Charter Hills. And last year I had some 72 bags of leaves that I put out. My back feels that every day today. The town says that it's 10 bags per pickup and only 4 times a year. But in traveling around Beach Mountain, you rarely see bags of leaves to be picked up. For my sake and understanding, talking to Bob and Daniel up at the utility department, I said, well, I'll fix that. I'll put 10 of my neighbors and 10 of my other neighbors and 10 of the other neighbors. And I thought about that, and I said, well, there are very few people that put bags of leaves out. Why do we have such a ruling today that you can only have that much? In the 5 or 6 streets that I do, there are only about 3 houses out of 100 that put bags of leaves out. And they do it once a year. I happen to put it out 2 and 3 times a year because I like my yard to look nice. And I also pick up the limbs from my neighbors and put them out in front of the house to be picked up. So please review that again. This afternoon I saw an item in the Avery newspaper that the town council went to the local school. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. I had this note before reading that. The other day I went up to the dump, and there was one person from the town council. Jimmy?
Yes, sir.
You were there. And I thought it might be a good suggestion for each one of you on the town council to pick a department once a month and just spend an hour or two just to get quite familiar with that instead of working just from behind this desk up here. You'll get a real feel about what goes on, particularly at dump, where those guys don't have a saying when people pick on them up there. And that's another case that I've spoken to Bob about. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on the consent agenda, go to page 19. There's an error as far as, before we accept the consent. It says slow plow. We don't have a slow plow, but we got a snow plow.
They are slow, man.
Maybe it was running backwards, I'm not sure, but just make sure we make the correction.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I need a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 7.7, recommendation, motion to close capital ordinance, tax releases. Any,
Motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
That's 7.7. Any questions on that?
You have a question on 7.3
Okay.
for Bob. What is the project they're referring to as the Public Works Facility Capital Project?
That's the Public Works building, the entire complex.
Just so
We're closing that out.
Okay.
That's been, this ordinance changes, closes out that project.
Yes, sir.
We had, council had authorized an ordinance when that project was first funded and started. So we're just crossing Ts,
I follow.
dotting Is.
Yes, sir. I follow.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Motion passed. Town manager.
Mayor, if you would take a look at 8.1, which is the financial report. I just wanted to go over that briefly with council. Page 34. Our benchmark is at 25%. It gives you a good rundown where we are in the first quarter. On page 35, if you look at the revenue for the general fund, it was at 1.83% when we wrote this as of September 30th. Yesterday, in one day, the town received $1.4 million in taxable payments. And so the point is that 1.3 is growing continuously as the tax season comes forward. Any other questions on the financials for water and sewer or sanitation?
We're still running high on vehicle maintenance.
You fixed some of that today in the consent agenda with a budget amendment. We had in vehicle maintenance, one of the reasons it's high is we had capital expenditures that were budgeted last budget year that were ordered in the last budget, not received until this budget. So the budget amendment you passed tonight brings that into compliance.
Did you send a message to the Fed? Our interest on income is looking pretty good.
I didn't do that. That's our federal government is doing that. So I'll start with my manager's report. A Ski Loft Road Improvement Project update. We did have the neighborhood meeting on the 18th of October. It was sparsely attended, as those of you who attended know. We're moving to obtain the construction easements from the property owners. The town attorney has a conference call this week with the special counsel that you authorized to come up with the best practice and how we can manage that project. So I'll have a better update for you on how many property owners have signed or agreed to the easement and what our plan is moving forward. Our Lake Coffee Reservoir update, 3 items of note. The progress with the long-term agreement with the resort is we have one item that's outstanding. And Mr. Costin and I have discussed that. The attorneys have discussed it. We believe there's a solution and the language is being created now. So hopefully we're rounding third base and seeing that. The issue, quite frankly, is water rights during a drought. The town's position is that the town will have 100% water rights during a drought. As you know, your ordinance kicks in with penalties for high use, with additional fees charged for homeowners who don't conserve during a drought situation that you create. You don't create the drought. You enact the ordinance, and the resort can't be using that water we need for potable drinking water to make snow. Mr. Costin and I have agreed, and the attorneys, as they do, are putting the language together.
So before we move forward with any other engineering fees or schedules or anything like that, we're waiting on language
No.
between the resort and the town to,
The short answer is no.
okay,
We're trying to move in as many different directions as possible so that we can secure the agreement with the resort. We can get the engineering to a point where the state, various state agencies will agree to permit it. We've, as you know, moved forward on looking at various funding mechanisms, and I've got a report on that. So we're moving in multiple directions. Any one of those can stall or stop the
okay.
project.
So this is all still on the town's dollar,
Yes.
okay,
Well, and it always will be. The agreement with
Right.
the resort is they give us a 99-year lease for the land and the water rights, and the town pays to construct the reservoir and operate the reservoir.
Gotcha.
Going forward, the town and the resort will share 50-50 on maintenance of the reservoir, but the construction will be on the town.
okay, thank you.
So, on the same project, applications for grant funding have been submitted to the state. They've been updated, and we are cautiously optimistic that we are being ranked again, and we'll go through. We're in two processes right now. The BRIC funding has been reapplied with some corrections to our application, as well as some state ARP funds that are available through the water agency. So we're hopeful for that. And the last item on the Lake Coffee Reservoir is we held a meeting with the Hagerty Consulting Group. This is a group that is national, deals with some very high-level issues, predominantly with FEMA funding, as well as the state of North Carolina funding. It was very positive. Councilman Abernathy attended that call. He's got a personal relationship with one of the principals of that firm. What we took from that was they have some connections in Raleigh with some of the state folks that control some of the big dollar projects. And we went through our project, we went through our funding requirements. I personally was very enthused with the outcome of the meeting. What I've done is ask them to submit a proposal to the town so that we can review it, have it go through legal, bring it to you at a council meeting for approval, and hopefully bring a firm like this on board to help us navigate the multi-million-dollar grants that we're looking for to fund this project. So it's the Hagerty Consulting firm that we're working with, or trying to work with. On the pay plan, the MAPS group update, all the written position questionnaires were completed by all employees. We had 100%, describing their job duties and responsibilities. Next week, we have one-on-one interviews with the MAPS group principals and about 50 selected employees to go over not only their survey, but their job titles and responsibilities. So we're well on track to have that for you in January. Probably have a preliminary report earlier than that, and move forward with that. So that's good news. The Town Hall and Visitor Center expansion, the bids finally opened Thursday. We extended that 10 days. Contractors are having trouble getting prices, not only from subs but material. So we'll have that bid open on Thursday, and I'll report to you at the December meeting. If you would look in your department reports on page 46, Parks and Rec, you would just take a look at the revenue. We're slightly higher over the same period last year, which you don't have it in that bar graph, but was an improvement over 2020 as well. So I did want to point out that Parks and Rec revenues are continue to exceed our expectations. On page 48, again, Parks and Rec, just to note at the top, that they completed in October 16 events in 31 days. And those weren't little events. Those were our trick or treat, our haunted trail. They did a number of things that, in October that were noteworthy, so I wanted just to point that out in your report. On page 50 in the planning and zoning, if you would just note that there was 140 permits over the same period last year. And if you go over to page 51, there were 16 new homes permitted this quarter from July 1st through September 30th. Those are 16 new single-family homes that are being built and being brought online to our tax base. And I think that's important to note. Also on page 51 at the bottom in other, our iWorks online permitting and records management program is up and running. That's through our portal at the town, and allows not only the contractor to submit a permit and plans and pay for the permit, but it allows the inspector to use the system in the field doing inspections. It has increased our productivity as we try to keep up with the growth in the town. And I will note that the TDA funded that software. So that was another issue where TDA stepped up for the town and funded that. And when you get a chance, stop in and see Preston or Michael Holland and ask him to give you a overview of the system. It's fairly impressive, and it's streamlined our permitting process. And as importantly, it has streamlined our collection of permit revenue. So I like that. On page 64 in the TDA, our occupancy taxes up in September was the report, up 9.4%. And that is, again, a record. And the reason I point that out, as Kate has, the economy, people keep talking about how the economy slowing down or possibly slowing down, but our September 22 was another record-setting month for TDA occupancy taxes. Again, up 9.4%. Let me turn the page here. And on page 67 of the same report, on the economic development, our workforce housing, there's a note down at the bottom that the possible solutions must include focus on retention of existing employees, created use of internships, apprenticeships, targeted recruitment from different pools of employees. It's important to note that the resort purchased the Alpine Inn and has converted it to workforce housing. And that's one of the solutions that we've been looking at here locally in Beech Mountain, but more importantly, as I reported before, you know that we're part of a grant with Avery County to look at workforce housing. And I've talked to Philip Barrier, the county manager in Avery. He's well aware of what we're doing here on Beech Mountain, and we're hoping that that model, maybe not grand scale, but locally, we can use that in Watauga and Avery counties to help with some workforce development. So you may have heard that there's a possible diesel fuel shortage, and we've been advised by our wholesaler that that is true, and we should plan on having substantial restrictions on diesel fuel beginning in January. That brings to light that, our highest use of diesel fuel is snow plowing, even with slow snow plows. Try and say that. So I want you to know that we're aware of that. We have a diesel fuel shortage plan in place. Staff has been working for 10 days on putting that together. Basically, we can store about 3 months worth of operating diesel fuel. So what we're doing is we're bringing in that supply now, then we won't use it, and we'll use other supplies, probably off the mountain, to get us to January. If we can get 3 months of snow plowing, it'll get us through March, and hopefully then either we'll be dry or they'll have solved this issue. But I did want to let you know that we're aware of it, and there's a plan in place to deal with it. On a positive note, the Christmas parade, A Very Merry Christmas, is December 22nd at 4 p.m. beginning at Fire Station 1. The little bears you have in front of you tonight are provided by Connie Putney and the parade committee. I'll explain what their meaning is in just a minute. If anyone wants to be in the parade, contact Parks and Rec Department for a spot, and we'll get you in. We'd like to have some floats. If you wanna march, or you have a marching band, I can't promise the weather will be good on the 22nd, but we'll have some diesel fuel to plow the road. If you wanna march, you can. The special bears that you have will be handed out during the month of December. And there's basically three entities. Bears from Those Who Care will be given out by the police and fire departments. And those are just random acts of kindness where we'll go out, and the police department will go out, and we'll put these on people's cars and hand them out wherever we can. We have Bears for Boo-Boos. They're bigger. And this is going to be handed out by our EMS department. So when they show up at your house and you have a boo-boo, you're going to get a bear.
Do you mind if I don't have them call them to come?
You have to call to get your bears for boo-boo. And then just keep an eye out for random bears on your vehicle in public parking areas, as we have some volunteers, they have some volunteers that will be going out putting these bears out on cars. And again, this was funded by the TDA, so appreciation to them. Last thing I've got is Veterans Day, as you heard very eloquently tonight. Special thank you to all veterans for their service to our country, and we are ready for snow. Mayor, that's my report.
All right, thank you. Town council comments, Mr. McCarty?
Yes, sir. First, thanks to the TDA for funding all kinds of goodies for the town council and the town and the community. Next, Mr. Wilson, with your comments, there are a couple people here that have asked me about the millage rate and whether we can do a rebate or whether we can help ease the burden. I don't have that answer, so I would refer to Jonathan, the attorney, or Bob, or the rest of the council at the end of my comments, if somebody would help me out with that. The flag color, I'm glad you pointed that out. I've never noticed that. So I believe we should be consistent in a color, so maybe next month that can be on the agenda, and we can discuss what color the Beach Mountain flag should be. And then if you've seen here with the Beach Mountain board members, there's 14 open spots with various boards. I highly encourage everybody, and tell your neighbors and your friends that live up here to, if they want to be involved, this is a great exercise to be involved. Doesn't take a whole lot of time, but it's a big impact, and you pay attention to the detail, and it helps out tremendously. And if you can post it on social media or something like that, greatly appreciate it. And then lastly, thank you to all the veterans, and God bless them.
Thank you. Sonia?
I would say basically the same things that Councilor Riccardi said. I'd also like to personally thank Sean Morrell and the rec department for just doing an amazing job. They've kept the rec center hopping this fall, and that's just a lot of things to do in a short month. So I bet they're all tired. But I agree also with Councilman McCarty. We need to look at next year, the millage rate, to see what we can do to help with that. But yeah, we're ready for cool weather.
Mr. Abernathy?
A couple comments. This will be the last. It just kind of go along with what Nick said. In terms of the recycling center, I always challenge myself with my business to see how we can cut costs. And I commend Vice Mayor for going up there and looking at this. But for the past 6 or 8 months, when I'd go through there, we had 3 employees. And today when you go through there, we have 2 employees. And I challenged Chief Pudney to see if we could manage with 2 employees. I guess indirectly it has been working, and it's a cost savings. We've been able to move that 3rd employee to another position. So is that, and I would assume that maybe at Christmas time or July 4th that we may have to put a 3rd person there. But for the past 6 or 8 months, I'm like, this just doesn't, it seems like it's more of an expense. Having 3 guys there, personally, I think it's manageable. And then you went up there and I guess worked for however many hours. I thought maybe pizza business went downhill and you were in training. But, you know, and what I challenge our residents, and that includes voting and non-voting, because to me, it's the same thing. When you see an area where you think the town can cut some costs, please share your insights with Chief Pudney and have him evaluate it. You don't know until you try. Secondly, Nick, in terms of the millage rate, and this will be the last time I comment on this, if you look at page 50, and I recall back in July when we were talking about the growth that we were going to experience, the numbers don't lie. And when you look at data and you make financial decisions, it's a no-brainer. So we've had almost double growth with our permits, and our growth is at a record pace, and we continue to sustain growth. So, you know, all that being said, in my opinion, I think and I say this respectfully to this council and councils down the road, that when you have historical data like this is how I base my financial decisions, and I think that we could have done a better job with what we did with the millage rate. Last thing is the expansion of town hall. I've heard some rumblings about, you know, the expense, and personally, I'm in favor of increasing the town hall. If you go into PD, it's a sardine box. It's not a good working environment. Furthermore, it's the TDA has been generous, and they're going to give the town 50 cents on the dollar. So that's pretty good value. There's not going to be, unless it's a grant or something that the state or the feds give us, 50 cents on the dollar is a significant savings. And, you know, if anyone wants to go evaluate this firsthand, give Chief Barnett a call and have him give you a nickel tour of actually how tight the working environment is. Other than that, thanks for everyone for attending the meeting. Need your input, and we have a lot of horsepower on this mountain, and would like to get some more people involved. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Lang?
Last but not least, right?
Oh, I'm lost.
So, our recycling numbers are down for October. Is that due to contamination with what's being brought in, or?
No, the numbers don't reflect what is refused. So
Okay.
the numbers reflect what we deliver, and it's weighed before it goes in. So your tonnage is gross tonnage. The net tonnage we don't show.
Okay.
So if a load is refused, that does not show on the schedule.
Okay, so what we're looking with solid waste versus recycled plastic, glass, aluminum, and cardboard is just kind of sitting out there waiting for the mixed use to finally come through?
Well, that doesn't explain the reduction in tonnage.
Okay,
That will help with the getting all of our recyclables accepted, which
Okay.
that's the intent. The reduction in tonnage, I believe, is a result, as we watch the trend of the commercial properties being taken out of our solid waste stream. That has some effect, obviously, on our recyclables.
okay. And then my other question was on Parks and Rec. When is Shane Park closing for the season?
Well, Sean was gonna give us a report on Shane Park tonight, but he lost his voice, and I told him he
Oh.
could talk to us in December. We'll keep it open as long as it's being booked.
Okay,
And he had a good report tonight on Shane Park, where it was booked all through the fall and actually into November. The first weekend in November, we had bookings. So we'll probably go through Thanksgiving, but I'll have him here in December to give you a Shane Park report.
and we're still not allowing RVs down
Correct.
at Shane Park?
Correct, that's
Okay.
by ordinance.
Okay. Thank you to veterans. Thank you, open seats. please go ahead and run. And I voted today, and I'm proud of that. And that's it for me.
Maybe we won't have a fuel shortage here the next month or so.
Slow snow plows. We'll have.
Slow.
That's hard to
Slow.
say.
Try and say that 10 times real fast.
Yeah,
Slow
that's hard. I had to
snow.
think about that.
All right, the only thing I have is, we keep talking about taxes, and we're gonna have, in January, we start a budget meeting, and we can look at all this, all these programs. And I'm sure our town manager will be looking at each department and see what he can do as far as trying to control their budgets. And I think we can look at all this. And again, the public are invited to some of these budget meetings. And so you can attend them here, and you can pretty well get an idea of what we're thinking. And then you can talk to the council members of some of your ideas. But we're open for different ideas. We all got our tax bill, and we're no different than anybody else in this room. We're all paying for it. But I think we're all aware that, you know, there's some people that are suffering from it, and we'll re-examine it. But I think keep having conversation about it isn't gonna make it go away. So let's just hold everything for January and next budget meeting. And hopefully we'll make everything, try to do the best we can for the town. And that's all I have. Just the one thing that, like everybody else has said, if you want to participate in the town business, there's all kinds of boards that you guys can get on. And we'll start looking at this in December, next month. But there's quite a few positions that are important positions. We've got TDA, we've got the planning board, Board of Adjustments, Recreation Department, as far as the rec center. So there is positions available, and we're looking for volunteers. This is your opportunity to make your voice be heard. And with that,
I'd like to mention that the link is found online under boards and committees, and you just fill out the application there. Thank you.
thank you.
Is there a deadline for that?
Well, we'll look at it in December. If not, we'll carry over until January. We'll see how many applicants we get.
Yes, sir.
The motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any